Hello everyone and welcome to the Kickabout podcast with me, your host Chris, and this week we've got Dan with us. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
So just wanted to run through first of all the intent of this podcast. So me and Dan, obviously massive football fans, myself being a West Ham fan and Dan being a United fan. We spend most of every weekend talking about what's going on, and we thought, you know what, why don't we do a podcast about it? So, here we are then. So the Kickabout is going to be a weekly show. We're going to look to record every Monday and release every Tuesday. And hopefully we're not going to miss too much if there's any Monday night football going on, which will be pretty typical, but you know how it is. We'll talk about what's going on in the world, talk about what's coming up, and try and have a bit of fun along the way. So, Dan, why don't you just quickly run through what you're looking for from this podcast and what you want to do with it?
I think we should just have a bit of fun with it. I want to do something different. I don't think there's any point in being exactly the same as every other podcast. So I think we should have a bit of fun with it, try and do some different things. We'll obviously be talking, I think we're going to try and focus on mainly Premier League and do a little bit of other stuff as well from other leagues.
Yeah, it will be mainly Premier League. I think there's going to be times where there's going to be lots of things to talk about from European leagues, if there's European football going on or international football going on. But for the most part, it's going to be Premier League, I think.
That's what we know best, really, isn't it? It's pointless us babbling on about other leagues that we have no idea what.
So let's get started then. So what we're going to do every week, we are going to have a little 5-minute roundup. Now, I suppose one thing to consider is that these podcasts are likely to change quite significantly, especially in the first few weeks and first few months, just because we'll be coming up with new ideas. There'll be jingles being thrown in. We're hoping to have a soundboard with some effects to flow in for comedic value and perhaps even to help add to the points that we're talking about, whether it's like an interview or something like that. So the 5-minute roundup is where we're going to start. Generally speaking, this is going to be stuff where we're just going to round up some other stuff that's going on, but stuff we're probably not going to go into any further detail in the rest of the podcast. So it'll just be stuff that's going on, but doesn't really worth talking about in great detail. So, Dan, why don't you start us off?
One of those things, obviously being a United fan, I will start with Jadon Sancho because I don't want to talk about it too much because I will cry. I really don't think we're going to sign him, unfortunately.
I said this to you earlier on, actually. I think there's a lot of similarities now between how Man United are handling this transfer and how they handled the Harry Maguire transfer.
Yeah.
It feels to me like they're trying to do the whole cheap thing. It's not working, and transfer window's at the end of September this year, is it? I think?
Yeah, start of October, I think it ends, yeah.
I can see a situation where it's going to go down to the wire. Dortmund are going to turn around and go, look, you've been dicking us around for an entire month. Yeah. You either pay this or you don't. I mean, I'm going, go on then.
Well, like I said to you, we've shot ourselves in the foot signing Harry Maguire for 80 million, and we signed Wan-Bissaka for 50 million. So, when it came to Grealish, and they sort of said, we want 80 million, we can't be like, oh no, we don't want to pay 80 million for a winger/striker, because they're like, well, you just paid that for a centre-back, so you can pay that for a winger.
And I think in today's world, 80 million for, how old is Sancho? What is he, 22, 21, whatever it is? I mean, he's got a long time left in his football career, barring any injuries, which of course we don't wish upon him. But 80 million for potentially 10 years worth of his career, that's not a lot of money. In today's world, anyway, it's not a lot of money.
No.
Who, if you think about United's strike force, where does he go? Where does he fit in?
Well, I think you would probably take Greenwood out and you'd have Greenwood as maybe like a backup for Martial. Because Greenwood does want to be a number 9. He wants to be a striker.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we've got a great front three. The stats are actually better than Liverpool's front three. But as soon as you saw it towards the end of the season, they just got burned out.
Yeah.
We were playing the same starting 11 every single game. And then Ollie wasn't making substitutes until the 85th minute because he was just sort of hoping and praying and crossing his fingers that they could get the job done. Yeah, but unfortunately.
Okay, so moving on then. I know this is one question we spoke about earlier in the garden at length. Should Eric Dyer be in the England team?
No.
Okay, good. Moving on. One thing I wanted to quickly talk about as well is, actually, it's kind of Man United related again. Is is Ed Woodward getting away with it a little bit?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't so long ago that there were people literally turning up at his house demanding that he leave because he was, a poison within the club. And now you signed a couple of players. Obviously, Solskjaer, I mean, it also coincided with the time that Solskjaer was having a really bad time with United. United were a bit of a laughingstock at the time as a result. You signed Bruno Fernandes. All of that noise just seemed to disappear. So has Ed Woodward got away with it a little bit here, and is history repeating itself with this transfer saga? I guess we're going back to that.
I think he's actually been very clever, because the way he's been doing the signings, they also almost seem to leave it until the last minute transfer window, and then they get in who they've been promising to get in, but then they're like, oh, we've got no more time left to get anyone else in.
Yeah.
Which is what happened with Bruno. Like, they seem to spend the entire January transfer window trying to get Bruno in, even though it was obvious that we needed a striker, and then we got Igalo. And I mean,
oh God, I forgot about Igalo.
Still at the team as well.
He extended his loan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Igalo didn't do anything wrong, but he
did quite well.
Yeah,
he scored a reasonable amount of goals when he played.
Yeah,
especially in the Europa League.
Yeah, but it was a panic buy. At the end of the day, we needed a backup to Martial, or someone that was going to push Martial, to try and keep his place in the first team. And Igalo's not really that person, is he? Unfortunately.
No. And Martial spent the vast majority of last season underperforming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It wasn't until towards the end of the season that he started to get back to the Martial of old a little bit. I mean, I had various conversations with you where I said I genuinely starting to think that Martial is massively overrated because he just didn't look interested. He had the case of the Ozils about him, just sort of like wandering around, not really looking too interested. His touch was off. He wasn't scoring goals. Clearly, his confidence was down. And then, he scored one goal and that was it. The floodgates opened, the confidence was flowing and he was banging them in.
I still don't know if he's a number 9, though. I would play him left wing, but we've got Rashford left wing, so I memean, where do you place Martial? You either have him on the bench or you play him in front, so I think that is why he's being turned into a striker.
Yeah. I mean, if you're clever enough with the tactics, teams have done it in the past that you can potentially have one number 9, but during periods of the game he'll float, he'll drop into cam, he might go out wide, and then somebody else will come into the middle. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you could play 2 left wingers and a right winger, and then just have them rotate. I mean, Barcelona. I mean, player ability aside, tactically it can be done.
Yeah.
Okay. And then moving on, the one last story I guess we just wanted to touch on because it was funny was the Harry Maguire story. I don't know. Obviously, this has happened a few weeks ago now, so we're not going to go into it too deep. But it was quite funny at the time to hear everything that was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the story really to touch on it too much. Obviously, you've got 2 different sides to the story. You've got Maguire's and you've got the Greek police, and at the end of the day, I think it'll be settled with a brown envelope, to be honest.
Well, it sounded like that was what Maguire was trying to settle it before he got arrested.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way he's going to go to prison. I mean, you've had people like Messi and stuff that have faced jail time, and then they just pay it off. Like, yeah, as long as they pay the money, they really don't care.
So, really good segue there, Dan, like that, because that's the end of the 5-minute roundup, which probably lasted more than 5 minutes. So, obviously, one of the largest talking points for probably the last 2 or 3 weeks has been Lionel Messi. Is he staying? Is he going? Looks like now he's not going anywhere. Looks like he's going to stay where he is. But do we think this was all a ruse? Do we think that this was all a how do I put this? Was this a power move? Was this him trying to get the board out? Was this him trying to do something on behalf of the club? So I'm going to have to open up a drawer here, so you might hear some background noise here.
I just find with Messi, like I've seen it with Argentina, he just seems to throw his toys out the pram whenever things don't go his way. Like, he's retired from international duty like 2 or 3 times in the last last 3-4 years or so. And if we'd have started this podcast about a month ago and you'd have asked me, will Messi go to City? Will he go to PSG? Will he stay at Barca? I would have 100% given you 100 quid and said, put it on him staying at Barcelona, because I just knew he wouldn't go.
Well, I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened, and this isn't the first time that Messi has done this either. He has effectively he's argued his case in point. Sometimes it's for a contract pay rise. it might be because he wants certain players being signed and he's kind of using his star status. I think sooner or later his star status is going to run out. He is 33.
Yeah.
Sooner or later he's not going to have that card to play anymore. But I think that this was probably the last chance for him leaving. I think now the bus is probably going to go because by the time the next year comes up and his contract ends and he is technically allowed to leave for free, which of course is supposedly the reason he couldn't leave this year, the president of Barcelona will have been re-elected. Will Ronald Koeman still be there? Who knows?
Well, there's been links to the whole reason Xavi, because they wanted Xavi before. And the reason Xavi, apparently, I mean, I can't say this as if I know the bloke, but apparently the reason Xavi didn't want to go there was because he was waiting for the next president to come in, because he didn't want to go in for a season and then get voted out when the new president comes in. So when the new president goes in, that apparently they want Xavi to be the manager.
Yeah.
So it's looking like Ronald Koeman will probably only be there until the next president comes in.
Yeah. I think Netherlands will be a bit upset that Ronald Koeman has gone there because he was doing a pretty reasonable job with Netherlands. I suspect that when Barcelona come calling, it's not the sort of job that you turn down, regardless of the situation that Barcelona currently find themselves in. I mean, this is a big job. This is a real thankless task for Koeman.
Yeah, so I mean, they need a massive rebuild, and I think he might regret leaving the Netherlands because I don't think he'll be there long.
No, I mean, if you look at their squad now, supposedly Suarez is on his way. He's on his way to Juventus, by all accounts.
There was going to Inter Milan.
Yeah, there was rumours the other day that I heard that Piqué is Fulham are trying to get hold of Piqué.
That's not.
No, it's not going to happen. But it did bring a smile to my face when I saw that.
It was like Leeds wanting Cavani.
That's right. Yeah.
If he goes to Leeds.
But and obviously Ronald Koeman's shopping list was supposedly Donny van der Beek, who obviously has now gone to United. He also wanted. I'm trying to think of the name. I know he wanted Michael Keane, who he obviously knows from his time with Everton, that's a real point for Michael Keane because Koeman's not been at Everton now for 2 years.
Yeah.
So obviously there was obviously there was a lot of respect there and a lot of respect for his ability to think that he could become a Barcelona player would be quite something, given that he's not even a regular for England.
Yeah, it's the same because obviously they're linked with Wijnaldum as well. And
That's right. Yeah, was the other one.
Wijnaldum's 29. I know obviously he plays for the Dutch team, so Koeman knows him. But I look at a Barcelona team and I think, would it have Michael Keane and Wijnaldum in it? I don't think they're Champions League winner. I mean, obviously Wijnaldum's won the Champions League with Liverpool, so that's not a fair comment. But I just don't, but it's just because he's 29. If he was like 21, I could understand it. I'd be like, yeah, he's probably going to be a great player. I just don't see him breaking into the Barcelona squad. He's not like a Xavi or an Iniesta.
That's true, but then if you look at Barcelona's team right now, I don't know whether they actually are these the sort of players they actually need. You know, have they spent too long trying to go after the sort of the Galacticos like Real Madrid tend to do? And Real Madrid, I know they won the league this year. They caught Barcelona up and took them over, but they've gone through a real transitional period as well, where they had an aging squad, a bit like Barcelona. They sold Ronaldo and everyone was like, what the hell are you doing? He carries your team. And they struggled for a little while to adapt. So I wonder if Barcelona are going to... This could well be a little bit of a... It won't be Arsenal-esque in terms to their sort of fall from grace and how long it takes them to ever get back to a winning status again. Mainly because, with respect, the Spanish league is not like the English league where, if one team falls away, another one will step up. Liverpool suddenly stepped up out of nowhere. Are Atletico Madrid going to step up and replace Barcelona as a real, genuine contender to Real Madrid? Maybe, maybe not. That's a coin toss. There's Seville that could. I don't know. So this could be a real rough patch for Barcelona.
I think with Barcelona, they need to be looking at who's going to be the next big thing. I think they need to be getting in these players like Ansu Fati. Obviously, he was already at the club. But he looks already like he's going to be a superstar. And I think they need to be getting in these players, probably aged between, I'd say, 20 to 25, that are going to be the next big thing, that they can create a player almost, mould a player to become a Barcelona player.
Yeah.
Like Messi, I mean, he started at the club and they've held on to him for, 12 years?
Yeah.
I mean, longer if you include all of his academy years. I don't see the point in buying a 29-year-old that's going to be good for a season,
I
maybe
see what you
two.
mean. Yeah, and they've got a very specific. Well, I suppose maybe it will change with new managers coming in, but they've always had a very specific ethos and how they play.
Mm.
Managers since Guardiola have all tried to play in similar ways. That's worked brilliantly well in some cases, and it's backfired massively on others, especially in the Champions League. Which I said to you earlier, it's crazy to think that Messi hasn't won Champions League now for what 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so just sort of going round back to the original point then. So as far as Lionel Messi, I think the bus has gone. I think that's the last chance we'll see him going to another big European club.
I mean, his contract runs out at the end of the season. It would be interesting if he does renew his contract because I can sort of understand where he's coming from because also in his contract it said at the end of the season. Well, it had an exact date.
It was 10 days after the Champions League final. I think
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
be.
That would have been the end of the season, and he was allowed to leave for free. So in his eyes, he was like, the season's finished. I'm allowed to leave for free.
Yeah.
But because obviously COVID and the season got extended, that date had passed. Because the season had been extended, he still had to say before that date, I want to leave for free.
Right. Okay.
So I can sort of understand it from that point of view, and that's what he's saying. He thought he was allowed to leave for free, and now he's saying it turns out I'm not allowed, and I don't want to have a fight with the club. I don't want to go to court with the club I love.
Yeah, and I think he knows that no one's paying 700 odd million, whatever his release clause is.
You know, even if he was 21, I still don't think anyone would be like 700 million.
Not with the financial fair play rules that are around. I mean, somebody would have to sell their entire squad to balance the books on that one. So yeah, I don't see him leaving. I think I think I agree with you. I think he will sign a new deal next year because, well, I suppose depending on how the season works out for Barcelona and how they perform in the Champions League, if they're on the wrong end of another smashing from a European team in the Champions League, maybe that will bring the argument back to the surface again. But I can definitely see a situation where he signs another maybe 2-year deal, takes him to when he's about 35, 36, and then goes to like the MLS or goes to Qatar or China or somewhere like there where you take one last big payday, not that he needs it.
I think new president, Xavi will come in. Xavi's probably best mates with Messi.
Yeah.
That he'll
Messi will want to stay just because
he'll almost become like assistant manager type thing.
In which many argue that he already is.
The same as Ronaldo, wherever they always say that Ronaldo says yes or yay or nay to any signings.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously it was a shame. I was very much looking forward to the prospect of Messi playing in the Premier League.
Even though I hate to see him at Man City, I'd love to see him.
Can you just imagine like watching Match of the Day on Saturday night and seeing, you know, like what Gary Lineker talking about Lionel Messi against Burnley?
No, for me it's more like the FA Cup, like Lionel Messi against Oxford United.
That's a good point. Yeah, like going to like imagine like a non-league team. Is it Harrogate, the team that's just got to league football? For the first time in their history. So congrats to them as well. But yeah, imagine being drawn at home against Man City and then Lionel Messi rocks up.
Was it 2 seasons ago when Bristol City got to the semi-final because they knocked United out? And
that's right, yeah.
City. Imagine you're playing against Lionel Messi in the Etihad Stadium.
That's crazy.
On a Saturday night. Like
that would be nuts. That would be absolutely nuts. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the current situation with kind of coronavirus without getting political about it. I want to talk about a little bit the fans in the stadium. So we've had a trial event. We had the Chelsea or Brighton Chelsea trial event, pre-season friendly, where I think they let up somewhere in the region of about 3,000 fans in. Supposedly they created a pretty good atmosphere despite the lack of numbers. But I don't know about you. I got quite used to the no fans towards the end of last season. I felt like the stadium effects that they put on really helped in some cases and hindered in others when they were really badly timed.
Yeah,
the ball went wide, and then just as the keeper was running to take the goal kick, then you get the ooh.
Or you'd get like a massive cheer, and the ball's gone out for like a corner.
So it was good fun though. I know there was a few teams having a bit of fun with it as well, with some of the sound effects and like the boos and the jeers and that sort of thing. That was quite cool. But yeah, I wonder. Players would have got used to that now. They would have got used to playing in empty stadiums. It clearly took a bit of time for the teams to get used to things again and get into the groove of when lockdown eased and then the Premier League came back. But I wonder now, will players prefer playing in empty stadiums until we're at a point where we can actually allow full capacity, or do you think they will prefer like quarter full stadiums with a few thousand?
I think for the lower sort of end of the table teams, they would much prefer to have fans in because I feel like for them the home advantage is massive. I think we saw it towards the end of the season, so with there not being any fans in, the bigger teams were almost playing at home when they were playing away.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have that pressure of the away fans jeering them when they're taking a throw in or jeering them when they're taking a penalty, etc. Whereas with the smaller teams, obviously they need that extra push. You know, when you're playing Man City at home, I don't know, let's say Norwich playing Man City, without any fans, it's probably quite hard to get that motivation going. Whereas if you've got a stadium full of Norwich fans and Delia Smith,
Delia Smith shouting, "Where are you?" from the terraces.
It's a cliche. But it is that 12th man.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, the teams in Man City, Liverpool, the top teams, they don't necessarily need that 12th man.
Yeah.
But the lower end of the relegation sort of teams, etc., they need that 12th man to give them that extra push.
Yeah, I think if you cast your mind back, and it feels like an age ago now to the start of last season, I think that's a good point. I think if you think back to Norwich beating Man City, does that happen if that's an empty stadium? Even though it's at the start of last season, so Norwich will still be on a little bit of a high from the previous season. Obviously, it very quickly petered out after that. I mean, I don't think they won a game for about 8 games after they beat Man City. Do they win that game without their home fans roaring them on against Man City? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, and what about the fan experience? So, you know, obviously fans will be buzzing to get back in the stadiums. There's mounting pressure in the in wider society for things to go back to normal from various people in politics and in positions of power. But I don't know whether, from a personal point of view, if I'm watching the game on TV, if we get to a situation where there's going to have to be one person every 3 seats, and then you're obviously not only going to have to leave space left and right, you're going to have to leave space forward and back in the stands as well. So you're going to have like one person in the middle, then one person in front of you 4 rows down, one person behind you 4 rows back, and the same left and right. From a spectator sitting on the sofa, I know it's very easy to say from sitting on the sofa, but does that look shit, or is it just me? Am I overthinking this?
And I mean, another thing is what, you know, are people going to adhere to? If you get a group of mates, are they all, you know, once they've had a few beers and stuff, are they all going to stay sat 4 seats apart, etc.?
Do the bars even open? I mean, you know, I know what you mean, and then there's obviously
and then you've got to get all the stewards involved, and then the stewards, you know, they're not going to be able to stay 2 meters apart, etc., etc.
I mean, the stewards will be loving life because there'll be far less crowd and crowd trouble to deal with. There's always that possibility of a build-up of fans outside the stadium who can't get in. I mean, that's another side of it as well. Is that how as a club do you control who gets into the ground to watch those games when it's such a small amount of
numbers? How do they select? Like, is it just season ticket holders, or is it first come first serve type thing?
And even if they do that, I mean, a number of clubs have obviously done concessions for season ticket holders, whether it be refunds, whether it be sort of holding on to them and saying, you know, we'll still adhere to this, don't give us any money, whatever it may be. Sooner or later, they're gonna have to choose. Do they do it by like a lottery? Do they do it by like a ballot? People are going to be disappointed.
And I mean, you've got the danger of you start letting people back in, and the whole COVID thing could spike, and then football stops all over again.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they're talking about October as being the earliest for anything like this to come back in the Premier League. There is a fairly sensible chance that's going to get pushed back anyway.
I was going to say, October's not that far away. I mean, we're at the start of September now. It's only sort of 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
So, I mean, you would like to think that, I mean, there's a growing opinion that there is going to be a second wave coming. How big and how bad it's going to be is open for debate. But if that does happen, then guarantee you that the fans in stadium is going to get pushed back until at least the new year. So yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to watch that. But obviously, we want fans back in stadiums. Mostly I would say in the lower leagues need it the most because of the revenue that it brings in.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely more of an impact on the sort of League One below.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw Bury disappear last year.
Yeah, and that was nothing even to do with COVID.
Absolutely not. I mean, but this COVID situation and the financial pressure that brings, it is going to highlight those clubs that have been run poorly, such as Bury.
Have gone into
Wigan have been hit. Bolton obviously only survived by the skin of their teeth a year or so ago, whenever that was. There are a number of other clubs in League One and League Two that have been mismanaged financially. And unless the owner decides to put his hand in his pocket and pump more money into the club, we might see another situation. We might see another Bury, and it's all right for the likes of us who support Premier League teams where that's almost certainly never going to happen. But if you're one of those fans, especially of the elder generation who've perhaps followed a team like Bury for 30, 40, 50 years, to see your club just suddenly disappear must be heartbreaking.
That's the problem. Some of these owners, I mean, some of them obviously absolutely love, like the Leicester owner. I think is a great example of an owner that absolutely loves his club.
Yeah.
And then you've got owners that buy these clubs, from say China or America.
Yeah.
They'll buy this club almost as like a hobby.
It's a plaything, isn't it? Yeah.
Like I own a football club.
Status.
Yeah. They have no idea what they're doing.
I always remember a story. Do you remember? I mean, you're a few years younger than me, but do you remember when Blackburn got took over? So this was, to be fair, this was probably a good decade ago.
Yeah, probably not.
So, I mean, this is a classic example. So this was, blimey, probably mid 2000s. I might have to Google it during the break to find out when it was. But these two guys took over. They were called the Venke brothers.
Yeah.
I think they were chicken farmers. Don't quote me on that. I seem to remember chicken nuggets and that kind of shit being thrown around as how they got their money. I mean, that might be a bit of a meme or something, but they bought the club not in and around the same sort of time that Man City owners bought theirs, and it, as you say, it started just to become a little bit fashionable to own a football club. These guys bought Blackburn. There were the usual rumours flying around, and there was talk of Ronaldinho going there before he went to Barca, I think, when he was at PSG, before PSG obviously got bought out themselves. There was talk of Lewandowski going there. I think there was even Roberto Carlos maybe as well. I mean, with huge names. I mean, maybe not as big as they became a few years later in their career. The Venkis apparently didn't know how to do a transfer. So they literally had to get advice on how do we put a bid in for this player? How do we do this? I'm like, you've come into. I mean, they're businessmen. Yeah. Surely they must sort of know. But yeah, I mean, and they then got relegated a year or two later.
It's funny these clubs that are linked with big, like Newcastle, a good example. Like as soon as they were with the whole takeover thing potentially happening, you had when Messi handed in his transfer request, you had. Could he go to PSG? Could he go to City? Could he go to Newcastle? And it's just funny, these clubs just get linked with all these players.
I mean, yeah, Newcastle, I'm trying to think of some of the others. I know that from a manager point of view, people like Pochettino was linked. I know there was a lot of other big name players, but yeah, I don't know. I think we are heading to a point soon where there's going to be a breaking point in football financially. And COVID might be the instigator of that. It could be the spark that ignites a wider crackdown, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word, a crackdown on the money that's paid.
Yeah.
You look at the money that was being quoted around from Messi going to Man City, obviously it could literally be, pie in the sky numbers. But if they were true, they was astronomical. And I think given so many people are struggling right now financially, unemployment's so high, people are being furloughed still. I think when you've got a football player coming in and potentially being paid like $1 million or $2 million a week, I mean it's obscene. I'm sorry, that's too far for even my taste. And I'm quite an easygoing guy when it comes to football because I believe it's an entertainment thing. It's supply and demand, but even that's taking the piss for me.
I thought the transfer prices. I thought clubs would sort of look at it and say, usually we'd want 80 million for this guy, but no one's going to have that money. So we'll just ask for, say, 40. I thought every club would almost have like a mutual understanding that they weren't going to be getting 80 or 100 million. They were only going to be able to get like 40, etc.
I think that's incredibly naive of you.
Well, I was hoping mainly for Sancho. We could get him for like 30 million, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think this is actually probably the lesser clubs. I say that with, well, I don't mean that disrespectfully. I mean teams like the lower teams in the Premier League. Who, I mean, West Ham may be a classic example as well with Declan Rice. I know obviously there was a lot of links with Chelsea. Had coronavirus not hit, would there be other clubs interested in Rice? Perhaps now that 80, 90 million, whatever West Ham would demand for Rice, if it was a few months ago, would there be other teams that could potentially do that without the financial impact that's happened with the coronavirus? So who knows? Right, and then I suppose just picking up on that money in football talk as well. Obviously, I just wanted to bring into talk the Özil and Bale sagas that are running on. So latest, as I understand it, is that Mesut Özil has refused to leave the club. He wants to stay and fight for his place, I think is what he said. I don't think that's going to be in his control. Well, you think that bridge is well and truly burnt from what I can tell?
He actually played for the first time in a friendly today.
Okay.
Teta included him in his squad. He played for the first time in God knows how long. He didn't obviously play at all after COVID. But yeah, he's put him in his squad. I mean, at the end of the day, if he's refusing to go, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen him play in ages, but to me, he's still a fairly good player. If you can fit him in your team, I think it's worth having him in there.
He's a player these days, I think, he's a situational player. I don't think you put him in for the big games. I think you put him in for the games where you know you're going to see a lot of the ball.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have him on the bench. You know, if you need someone to come on and he's almost like a poor man's David Silva.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. Yeah, same sort of player, likes to be on the ball, drifts in and out. Never been blessed with big pace, but uses his head.
He's not a massive goal scorer, but he does get assists.
Yeah, I will never forget the assist I think he did against Liverpool. I think it was a cup game where the ball was going just wide, and he looked like he was going to shoot, and he did a little Cruyff back flick to the player basically behind him and fooled everybody. It was an unbelievable piece of presence of mind to even think to do that when so many other players would have panicked and desperately tried to get it in from the tightest of angles.
Do you remember when Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal and he ran through on goal in the defender, and then you do like a fake shot, but he full on went through with his fake shot. He did a massive old swing. Goalkeeper dived on the floor and then he just chipped it into an empty net.
Yeah, that Ozil of old was capable of those just moments of absolute sheer class. And Gareth Bale very much the same. I
don't blame him at the end of the. If I was getting paid 350 grand a week, and my manager said, I don't want you to go to a different club, and then other clubs are saying, oh, we're not going to give you 350 grand a week, but we'll give you 100 grand a week. At 32 years old, you're like, I don't have many years left. I'd be rather just earn that. Plus, he loves London.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to go.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. He's in a city that he loves. He's getting paid 350 grand a week, and he doesn't even have to turn up.
And speaking of not turning up, Gareth Bale. So, latest bit of shithousery this week is the new BT Sport advert, which I think brilliantly throws in a dig and an elbow at Real Madrid by showing Gareth Bale, all these other football players on the advert, all playing football and doing stuff around football, and Gareth Bale's on a golf course.
Yeah, see, that's brilliant. You told me that. I haven't seen it, but it doesn't surprise me. It's like I was saying about the banner with him stood.
When he was playing for Wales, yeah.
Like he knows exactly what he's doing. He could quite easily say, "Oh no, guys, I don't want to wind the club up. I don't want to get involved." If BT have come to him and said, "Can you do this advert?" and he's gone, yeah.
He would not have thought twice about it.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay me.
But I think Gareth Bale, we don't really know the full extent of the stuff behind the scenes. We know that Zidane doesn't like him. We know that feeling is very much mutual. By all accounts, I think he's doing a little bit like Ozil. He's not refusing to play. He's training. He's playing when he's asked. As you said earlier, he was ready to go to China. The club decided it was the club that decided they didn't want to let him go for whatever reason that was.
Well, because Zidane wanted to let him go for free. So the Chinese club only wanted him for free because they obviously have to pay his massive wage.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to stay on the same wage. This Chinese club said, yeah, we'll pay you your 600 grand a week or whatever it is. But they didn't also want to pay 50 million for him plus 600 grand a week. So Zidane said, have him for free. Everything was sorted.
And then the club turned around.
And the club were like, hang on, we're not letting Gareth Bale go on a free transfer.
Yeah, I mean, finances in clubs now, obviously Chelsea, the example with Willian, it's easy to overlook the fact that wage budget is so important to clubs across a year. So you may lose a player for free, but if you're freeing up £600,000 a week,
Yeah.
you can use that money to not only fund transfers, because £600,000 a week. What's that? That's 2.4 million a month. That's 12 million a year if his contract was. In fact, it's not 12 million a year, is it? My maths is really no. It's 60 million, isn't it? It's 60 million, 60, 70 million a year. That's a transfer of a big player, and if his contract's over 3 or 4 years, you've just saved yourself a lot of freaking money.
To me,
even if my maths is wrong, it's a lot of money you've saved.
£100,000 a week is a lot of money for a footballer to be earning. So you could literally finance 6 players' wages on £100,000 a week for the same amount as Gareth Bale.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, all my point is that you may not get a transfer fee up front for him, but actually you potentially, in theory, you are. Because there's no other player that Real Madrid are going to sign that's going to demand that sort of money.
Especially if they're not playing him. What's the point in them keeping him?
Yeah.
And paying him £600,000 a week if he's not playing?
Get off the wage bill. Go and sign. I mean, they could have used that money to fund Hazard.
Yeah. I think it's a shame though. Like, a player like Gareth Bale, he's still got a lot to offer. I think.
Yeah.
I think he'd easily get in a top Premier League team.
I think if you're a Wales fan, I think you're probably quite frustrated as well because he's still playing for Wales.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be at the level that he should be.
Well, he got taken off at half time because he just doesn't have the fitness because he's not been playing.
Yeah. And I think so, Wales are not blessed with superstar players. Gareth Bale is very much front and centre with that, and possibly Aaron Ramsey if he's firing.
He's like the Zlatan of Sweden, isn't he?
Yeah.
And superstar at the end of the day.
And I think that if he was playing more regularly, Wales would see a better Bale. And there's only two ways about that. And with major tournaments coming up, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head where Wales sit with regards to the European qualification. I can't remember if they made it through or if they're because there's still playoff games to be completed yet. I can't remember if Wales are involved in that or not.
You've got the Nations League, which they can qualify through.
Yeah.
I don't know if they qualified from their group or not. But I mean, was it the Euros like 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
To the semi-finals?
Yeah.
And they knocked out Belgium in the quarters.
Yeah, and smashed them as well. It was 3-0 they beat them. Yeah.
And they were in our group. We finished above them. I think that's when we got knocked out by Iceland.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that day.
Yeah.
So, right, okay. What we're going to do now, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Premier League chat afterwards. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Kickabout. So, in the second half of the show, we're going to be focusing more on the Premier League, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about what our predictions are going to be for the current season. There's going to be a little bit of twist with that because we're going to actually turn that into a little bit of a how do I put this? A game? Is that the right way to put it?
Yeah, I guess. Was it game competition? It's more of a competition.
Competition between us. And also, Fran, who may be joining us, she will also do her predictions the same way that we are going to do. Likelihood is that at the end of the season, we will reveal our predictions and compare them against what the actual results are. So, onto the Premier League restart then. First thing I want to talk about is the newly promoted sides. Leeds obviously back in the Premier League for the first time in 16 years, which is massive. It's great to see a big club like Leeds back in the Premier League. West Brom back in the Premier League under Slaven Bilic, so Slaven Bilic is back in the Premier League as well. And also Fulham back at the first attempt. Quite surprisingly, I think Fulham. I don't think anyone expected Fulham, given the season and how they worked out. From memory, I think they snuck into the playoffs really late. I think maybe even last game.
When? This season?
Yeah.
I guess they got.
Oh, no, I'm lying. Sorry, that was Swansea.
They got relegated last season, didn't they? So, I mean, Scott Parker's done very well to get them straight back up.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of Swansea that got into the playoffs on
the
very. Yeah, that was close. Yeah, slightly different geographically. Fulham obviously got back up. Mitrovic hung around, which was kudos to him. He smashed in the goals last season, which got them back to the league. So of the newly promoted teams, how do we think they're going to fare? Obviously, Leeds have signed Rodrigo, which is
I don't know about that one because have you seen his stats at all?
They're not brilliant, are they?
He scored 3 goals last season.
Yeah, they're not brilliant. How much did they sign him for?
30 million.
30 million. Wow.
For a striker that scores 3 goals.
Yeah. I mean, I've got we know him, Joe, from football. I had a bet with him the other day that Patrick Bamford wouldn't score more than 10 goals this season.
Yeah,
And actually, I think I would have been safe if I'd have said 5 goals, frankly. But Joe was adamant that Bamford was going to have a good season. You know, he's had a couple of years honing his trade with Leeds. There's another podcast to listen to, and they refer to the Huckabee zone. And Darren Huckabee, for your benefit of any other younger viewers out there, was a player a little bit like David Nugent who excelled in the Championship but never really quite did it in the Premier League.
A bit like today's Dwight Gale, then.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I think Bamford falls into that category. I think that if you want to get your team to the Premier League from the Championship, Bamford is the striker that you want, and Neil Warnock is probably the manager that you want. But obviously Bielsa, I don't think it's been made official yet as to whether he signed the new contract and staying.
I don't think he has yet, no, because it was all dependent on. He just said he wanted everything to be on the celebrations and stuff. He didn't want to talk about his contract, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's just got them promoted, he's surely going to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, I might have missed it, but as far as I know, he hasn't signed the contract. But I'd be stunned if he's not.
It would be a strange one for him to get them promoted and then be like, well, see ya.
I wonder when his contract actually officially ends then, because under normal circumstances, end of the season would be June or July. Obviously, we're not under normal circumstances; everything would have changed. But the season starts this week.
Yeah,
this weekend. So
I assume he's got another year at least, because he wouldn't still be there now.
You would think not. So maybe it's been done.
They would have got a manager in.
Yeah. Maybe it's been done. Maybe there's some kind of rolling contract until it's officially done. I don't know.
We're the only ones that don't know he's already signed.
Yeah, the people are probably literally sat there going, these fucking idiots. But yeah, I think on the assumption that Bielsa is still there, I think Leeds are set for a good season. I think
Leeds will be another sort of Sheffield United. I think they'll finish quite high up. Actually.
Yeah, I think whether they'll crack into the top 10. I don't know. But they'll be dancing around there. I think anywhere between 8th and 12th for Leeds, I think.
I don't think they'll be...
And I don't think they'll be... No, I don't think they'll... I can see them looking forward, not looking over their shoulder for the vast majority of the season. If they find themselves anywhere near that relegation zone, I think that will be quite a disappointing season for Leeds.
I think they're going to have a slow start. I think it will take them...
Well, Liverpool first game of the season is not going to help.
It's tough. I think it will take them 3 or 4 games. They'll maybe lose their first 2 or 3 games. You've got the fixtures up.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the fixtures now. I mean, Leeds have got Liverpool, Fulham, Sheffield United, Man City and Wolves as their first 5. That's not an easy start, and it is very, very important to have a good start. So if you do have a hard run of fixtures early doors, it can... let's say, for example, that Fulham are the only ones they get points out of. Yeah. Let's say they get a win against Fulham, a draw against Sheffield United, and after 5 games they've got 4 points. That's going to put them in the lower reaches of the league, you would think. Probably bottom quarter.
Yeah.
And psychologically and from a confidence standpoint, that can be huge, and that can have lasting impacts across the season.
Yeah. I mean, if you get, say, 4 wins and 1 loss in your first 5 games... that is going to give you a massive boost, especially if you've just come up from the Championship. If you get 4 losses and 1 win, then that's when you start to look down. You can see that Championship again.
Yeah.
And it's sort of... I mean, obviously, it doesn't get panicky because you've got a long way to go, but that's when doubt does start to sort of creep in.
As far as Fulham go, they start the season off against Arsenal. Then obviously they've got to play Leeds. Then they've got Aston Villa, Wolves and Sheffield United. So... probably on the same sort of level as Leeds, probably slightly easier if you had to say one or the other. Fulham, obviously the last time in the Premier League, they massively overhauled their squad. They basically bought a new starting 11.
A lot of money.
Did not work out, to say the least. I suspect they're not going to do that this time, and they haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Scott Parker. I'll be brutally honest. I haven't watched enough of Fulham this year to see how they are defensively, because that was their big thing before. Is that they weren't scoring huge amounts of goals. They were scoring enough. They weren't scoring herds of goals, but that was an issue. But defensively, they were dreadful the last time they were in the Premier League.
I mean, I actually really liked Fulham. I was really happy that they came back up, but I just don't see them surviving.
No, you think they're prime candidates for the drop?
They're going to go back down again.
Okay.
I think they will. I don't think they'll finish dead last, but I think they will be what is it, 18th?
Yeah, you think they'll be
they'll
the
be
last of the 3 to
the
go
last
down?
team to go down. Yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough season for them. I think after the first 10 games, so after those first 5, they've then got Palace, West Brom, West Ham, Everton, and Leicester. So it's still, I mean, it's a bit of a toss of a coin to start the season because we're making assumptions based on last season's form. We don't really know how they're going to start this season. So it's a little bit of a coin toss to try and guess where teams are going to sit.
I mean, Sheffield United proved that anything can happen. If someone had said to me last season, who do you think will go down? For me, Sheffield United would have been in my bottom 3.
Most of the football podcasts I listened to all said the same.
Yeah.
Most of them had Sheffield United to go down.
If someone had said to me that they were fighting for a Champions League place come like the last 10 games of the season, I'd have been like, yeah, what are you smoking?
It's a really weird one with Sheffield United, isn't it? Because actually, by the time the end of the season comes, stupidly, you're saying a little bit like Leicester as well. Actually, the position that those two clubs were in 10, 15 games from the end of the season, where they actually finished up, you would actually probably class both of their seasons as a disappointment.
Yeah,
and it's stupid to think about because at the start of the season, Sheffield United would have bit both your arms off to have a season like they've just had. But being in the situation that way, it's a bit like saying, when you're, if you're a team, a lower league or a lower team in the Premier League, let's say West Brom this season, if they're playing Man City, if they're 1-0 up and then they concede a goal in the 93rd minute, are they happy that they've got a point, or are they disappointed they didn't get all 3 because of that situation that they're in? Yeah. It's the same sort of thing. You can say at the start of the season we'll be really happy for this, but if the season is different and you're performing way, way better than expected, but then at the last minute you kind of peter away and it doesn't quite go how you want, actually the whole dynamic changes and it suddenly becomes a disappointment rather than an achievement.
Yeah, I think Chris Wilder's definitely, for Sheffield, they're obviously disappointed not to be in the Europa League, I would have thought. But at the same time, you would look at it, I think initially you'd be like, oh crap, why did we not finish in the Europa League? But then, some like now, you'd be
lots of dust has settled.
Yeah, we finished about 12 places above where everyone thought we were going to finish.
Yeah. So, and I suppose before we talk a little bit about West Brom and how their season's lining up, also because there's a point about West Brom and one particular player that they've signed that I also want to talk about.
From you guys.
From West Ham, yeah, which has sparked some interesting debates on social media. How do you think Sheffield United are going to do? Because obviously they have had a fantastic season when you take everything into account. Are they going to be sufferers of the second season syndrome? Do you think that people will have worked them out a little bit?
See, I've put a lot of their players in my fantasy team, and I had no doubt until you said earlier, about the whole second season syndrome, and now I'm doubting my whole life.
I feel like the second season syndrome is... that whole term, I think, is losing a little bit of its merit, if you like. I think that was definitely something that used to happen with some of the teams that came up, but I think there's less and less teams now that are coming up where if they go down the following season, I don't think it's because suddenly they just fell off a cliff. I think it's just because other teams outperformed them. I don't think it was suddenly because everybody worked them out. Wolves is a classic example. They've just got a very good squad and a very good manager.
It's not just that; it's the whole club. Everybody is doing the job that they need to do.
Yeah.
Their scouting system, obviously they've got something set up. I think with is it Georgia Mendes, the agent?
Yeah.
They've got something set up with him.
Yeah, they basically just sign any good Portugal player that comes around.
The Portugal national team is going to be just Wolves. They'll just have both badges next to each other. But I think Chris Wilder as a manager is actually really underrated.
Yeah.
I think what he did with Sheffield United, to be honest, quite controversial. If Sheffield United had finished in the Europa League, I personally would have given the Manager of the Year to Chris Wilder.
Yeah, I think it's so easy. It's a bit like man of the match in football. You just give it to whoever scored the winning goal. There's a bigger picture involved, and I think if he'd have got Europa League, I think not giving him Manager of the Season would have been...
Because I think there's obviously a case for Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool won the league for the first time.
The kind of narrative around that.
But if someone would say to me, Liverpool are going to win the league this year, it would be a lot less surprising than Sheffield United going to qualify for the Europa League first season in the Premier League. Especially
given Liverpool previous seasons.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a Leicester where they suddenly came out of nowhere and won the league. Liverpool were prime candidates. They were second favourites to win the league, so it's not a big surprise.
Look at Liverpool's team. I mean, it's class. It's the best team in the world at the end of the day, whereas Sheffield United.
So, and then finally, just want to talk about West Brom. So they start the season off at Leicester. or I can't remember if they're home. It doesn't say if they're home or away here. Then they've got Everton, Chelsea, Southampton, Tottenham. Interestingly, they've then got Tottenham 3 games later. So they seem to be playing Tottenham twice in the opening 8 games of the season, which I don't know if that's a typo or what. That's weird. Or if that fixture maybe will get changed, but
I guess it could be for the cup. It might be a cup.
possibly, yeah. Although I think this is Premier League fixtures only, but yeah, West Brom. Obviously, Slaven Bilic in charge. Speaking as a West Ham fan, when he was in charge of us, players tend to love him. I don't think he'll ever lose the dressing room unless something catastrophically goes wrong. Have they got the players to stay up? I'm not sure. I think for me, West Brom are the most likely of the 3 to go straight back down. For me, now the point I wanted to talk about was obviously the signing of Grady Diangana, who spent last season on loan there. As a West Ham fan, I am spitting feathers about the fact not only that we let him go, but for the price that we let him go as well. Because West Ham clearly, for some reason, we either don't have any money or the owners don't want to spend any. We have to sell before we buy, which I'm not particularly bothered about, but it's who we've sold that's the problem. Grady Diangana is a young player. He's an England under-21 international. He's bags of potential, bags of energy and skill and pace. And in pre-season, he's looked brilliant. Like Sebastian Haller for West Ham, he didn't have a particularly good first season, it has to be said, for our record signing. He was speaking out in pre-season saying, I'm really looking forward to playing with Diangana. This kid he's quality. He assisted Haller, I think, 3 times in pre-season, put the ball on a plate for him. And then out of nowhere, a bid comes in of, I think the story's 18 million, potentially rising to 20 with add-ons. And that's it. He's gone within 24 hours. He's a West Brom player again.
Do you think that was a owner's decision, or do you think Moyes was involved in that decision?
I hope it was an owner's decision, because Moyes has made a lot of noise about wanting to have a young squad, have a young, energetic squad, and Diangana fits that bill. Absolutely, he does. So for Moyes to then backtrack on that and say, yeah, he's fine to go, it doesn't really make sense, especially how he was performing in pre-season. I see no reason why you would sell him now. If he didn't have a very good season, if he was a bit of a Premier League flop, if he didn't live up to the hype effectively, then fine. But and everybody knows we got no money. I know we're deviating from West Brom here a little bit, but Mark Noble came out on Twitter and was raging about this. Declan Rice then retweeted it and liked it. He deleted the retweet, but he kept the like. Basically, it was Noble saying that I should have really brought up the tweet, but effectively he was saying, massive player of future. I'm angry and sad that he's gone. It was quite a damning tweet about the club. That to me says it's the owners. I don't think Noble would have put that if it was manager. Jack Wilshere then commented on Grady's Insta post where he was thanking the fans, basically saying, yeah, go to a club that respects you, insinuating that West Ham didn't. And I think, I hate to say it, but I see another civil war brewing. It was not that long ago where West Ham fans were storming the pitch and protesting against the owners. We rode that storm a little bit because, as these things do, they tend to die down, but it's coming back. The fans are fuming on social media. Experts and pundits everywhere are raising eyebrows, saying, "What on earth are they doing selling this player?" Supposedly we were going after Ben Rama from Brentford, but he's older. He's not proven. Diangana's West Ham through and through, and now everybody knows we need another player. So everyone's say, "Oh, we know you're desperate. We're going to put the money up a little bit now."
Well, obviously, from your point of view, as West Ham fans, it's a poor bit of business from West Ham, but if we flip it for West Brom,
this is true.
A great bit of business on their end.
18 million I think represents a very low risk for West Brom. He knows the team, he knows the club, he knows the manager. I think if he was ever to leave, that was the best place for him to go. And I really hope he does well, because I kind of want it to be rubbed in West Ham's owners' face. I know it sounds stupid, for me to do that, but I do. I want our owners. And there was a lot of rumours circulating that our owners are looking to sell, and by God, I hope that happens. As long as they don't sell it to fucking anybody, like Mike Ashley rocks up and says, "Yeah, I'll buy him."
Imagine that.
So yeah, I mean, the West Ham are in dire. We need a good start to the season to quell the fans. I think wins obviously keep everything under wraps. A bit like Man United. If you think about all the troubles they had when Ollie wasn't winning any games, and the stuff with Ed Woodward. As soon as you start winning games, That all went away.
Yeah, that's the thing. Isn't it?
So, but West Ham's top to the season. Newcastle, I think we're at home to them. Then we're away at Arsenal, home to Wolves. I think we're away at Leicester. Then we got Burnley, Man City, Liverpool. That is a probably, with the exception of maybe Burnley and Aston Villa, that is probably the hardest start of any club in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, with this league table, it's got like a colour coded system of difficulty. So red is difficult, bright green is easy, and you got a lot of reds there.
Yes, yeah, we do. Although that's probably more a reflection on the team that we are rather than our opponents.
Obviously, that's whoever wrote it is not a massive West Ham fan.
If you look at the colour of West Ham in everybody else's fixture list,
nice.
It's quite a bright green.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that speaks volumes about what the pundits think about West Ham's plight this season. And it's stupid because West Ham actually got a good squad. I don't think we should have been anywhere near at the bottom of the league where we were.
I would have, like I say, if we'd have done these predictions last year, I honestly would have put you top 10.
Yeah.
I'd never have put you fighting relegation.
And we've got a squad that can do it. And actually, we had a cracking start last season and then petered away. And obviously, Moyes had to come up. Yeah, we very nearly beat you at Old Trafford as well. Yeah, not a good time to be a West Ham fan right now. Let's pray and hope we have a good start to the season. Let's talk briefly about the title race. Let's talk about the Man City versus Liverpool and how they're likely to get on, and whether we think Chelsea, with the summer signing spree they've been on, do we think they can get in on the act?
Where do you want to start? Do you want to go City Liverpool, or do you want to talk about
let's do City Liverpool first. Do we think that City are going to regain it? Do we think Liverpool are going to retain? What do we think?
For me, it's City.
You think?
Yeah, I don't want either team to play.
No, there's a bit of a rivalry here, I know, but take your Man United shirt off.
It's like, did you see Gary Neville the other day? They said, City or Liverpool, and he was like, "It's like you asking me which bloke I want to cheat on my wife with." I think City will be aching for it. They'll hate that Liverpool have overtaken them, and I think Guardiola is going to be wanting to get it back.
Yeah, I think obviously City need to shore up their defence. I mean, they dropped. I think Guardiola got away with it a bit last year. I don't think he got anything like the criticism that other managers would have got for the number of games that they lost last season. So I think City need to shore that up. If they can do that, we all know how good they are going forward and with the ball.
Yeah.
They've signed Nathan Ake. There's rumours circulating that they're going to sign Koulibaly from Napoli, assuming Napoli can find a replacement first. If that happens, I think you have to say that Man City have done a bit of a Liverpool, really. They've identified where their weak areas are. They've strengthened. Now can they put it together across the season? And Liverpool haven't. They've not signed anybody yet.
Well, they've signed the Olympiacos left back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How silly of me to forget.
I can't remember his name. I can't remember. They wanted someone else.
Thiago is from Bayern Munich is the one that's being linked, isn't it? Yeah. So I think he would be a good signing. I'm not sure he's what they need. I think they do need a backup striker to their front three.
The problem is a bit like Spurs with Harry Kane,
Who's going to go there?
Yeah, like who wants to go and sit on the bench and wait for your Firmino, Mane and Salah to all get injured?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, no one's walking into that team, well, not into that front three. Anybody that goes to their club knows they're sitting on the bench waiting for one of those three, to come.
Yeah. I think one of those probably needs to be sold. I think you're right. I think one of those would need to be sold before another player comes in and goes there thinking, right, I will go there now because I know I'm going to be one of the first names on the team sheet in that front three.
Because for me, the difference between Man City and Liverpool isn't so much the starting 11s, it's the bench.
Yeah.
Like, I look at Man City's squad and probably 90% of their bench could walk into our United team.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact they've got like Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, all just sat on the bench
Phil Foden
watching the game.
That's incredible, isn't it? And there seems to be such harmony there. Like they don't mind being that squad player. So yeah, I think Divock Origi. There's somebody I work with who literally, if ever Divock Origi was sold, he would volunteer to drive him to the airport. He hates him that much. I
mean, he's done.
He scored some massive goals, really important goals.
Again.
Yeah, I don't think Divock is. I've said this, but I don't think Divock Origi is as bad as Simon likes to think he is. But I do agree that with your point is that I don't know how much they're going to improve on Divock Origi and also get somebody that's willing to sit on the bench. They'd have to go for maybe someone towards the end of their career, maybe.
I mean, when I look at City's, I see their bench. You can see someone that's, if Aguero's out injured, they've got Gabriel Jesus, who can go straight in. Say Sterling's injured, Bernardo Silva can go straight in.
Yeah.
You look at Liverpool, if Firmino's injured, they got Origi. They're not on the same wavelength. They're not on the same level.
They've got Brewster, obviously, who had last season on loan at Swansea. I think there's talk that Liverpool are still undecided as to what to do with him, whether to loan him out.
Is he 17?
I can't remember. I know he's young. He does look good. He scored a couple of good goals in pre-season. Klopp will be looking at that and thinking, do you know what? He's not going to play a huge amount. He's going to be a squad rotation player at best this season, unless there's an injury. Do we loan him out? And if we do, I think he's probably going to have to go to another Premier League club. I think he's had that season at Swansea. He did very well there. But I think now he needs Premier League experience. And if he's not going to get it at Liverpool, they're not going to sell him unless they get a big offer in for him. So I think he's going to go on loan. I can see him going on loan to someone like a West Brom.
I think they should loan him out. I think it would be good for him. A bit like Tammy Abraham. Tammy Abraham went on loan for like Villa and that. And even Dean Henderson from United. Obviously went to Sheffield United and now he's in the England team.
Yeah, Mason Mount.
Yeah.
So there's examples of where it works and there's examples of where those players have got enough experience, they've come back and done
I don't think young players should just be sat on the bench playing in Carabao Cup games again. No disrespect to league teams, etc.
No, you don't earn enough, not only from the quality of the opposition, but the number of games that you play by going down that.
And if you're playing week in, week out for a championship club, you're getting so much more experience than you are playing the odd game for a Premier League team.
And these days, the championship is such a difficult league to get out of, so that experience is worth more now than probably it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
for me, it's City. For you?
I really don't know. If you put me in a corner and said you need to pick one, I think I would go Liverpool.
That's interesting.
The only reason I'm saying that is because I might change my mind if they get Koulibaly. I genuinely think that City's defence, even with Nathan Ake, I think Nathan Ake is a good player.
Do you think Ake plays?
If he does, John Stones is not getting anywhere near that first team. If Guardiola's brought Ake in as a number one centre back to partner maybe Laporte, I don't think John Stones is getting anywhere near that team.
Otamendi, Fernandinho.
I think Fernandinho will be very pleased that Ake's coming because that potentially means he ain't got to play centre back anymore. I think Otamendi, Guardiola does rotate. He does rotate his squad. So I don't think Otamendi will be too bothered.
No, I think it's like 32, 33.
Yeah, so I don't think he'll be too bothered about Ake coming in because he knows he's still going to get game time. Laporte is fairly injury prone as well. It has been so far. Yeah. So there's a good chance Otamendi's going to get a run of games anyway. John Stones, on the other hand, that probably now makes him fourth choice centre back for City. So I see a situation where he leaves before, especially if Koulibaly comes in, Stones is out of that club.
I don't know if he would leave mainly because the whole English thing. You need a certain amount of English players in your team.
Yeah, but they've got Nathan Ake, and so that's your
He's
one
not
for one.
English, he's Dutch.
Is he? Holy shit! I genuinely thought he was English. No, okay, all right.
Plays for the net.
Okay, well that shut me up then. In which case, then yes, possibly so. Maybe they need him for the English quota.
Yeah, that is why I think Spurs have signed Joe Hart. Not because he's a renowned world-class goalkeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's a free English goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's a good point. Which is a shame for John Stones because I know he can be error-prone, as we've seen at times for both City and for England. He is still a very good defender, and I think if he was to play at... I think he could probably go... Saying going to a lower Premier League team, I think would probably be disrespectful for him. I think he's a top 10. He's a top 10.
Back at Everton, I think he'd get in Everton's team. I mean, Everton fans might say differently, but I think he'd be a good player for someone like an Everton. Just, fighting for Europa League or maybe a Europa League team. Maybe like a Wolves or something.
I was about to say Wolves. I think he fits in their style of play because obviously Stones is a ball player. He likes the ball on the deck. Yeah. And I think Wolves would really benefit from someone like John Stones. About him and Connor Cody could partner quite well. Depending on what formation they play, obviously they've lost Doherty to Spurs.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was one that I think I think that's a good signing for Spurs.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good signing for Spurs. I think Serge Aurier has proven himself to be quite unreliable.
Yeah, so they've sold Walker Peters to Southampton.
Yeah, so I think that transfer really makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see how Wolves cope, because Doherty was a big player for them last year.
And was it 15 million? I don't
It
think
wasn't that
wasn't
much,
expensive.
unless his contract is coming to an end. That does seem cheap. So anyway, so going back to the seat Liverpool, I think Liverpool now, if they get Koulibaly in, I think City might do it. I think Liverpool weren't great in lockdown. They were awful in the Community Shield the other week. So Liverpool have got some work to do. So it's going to be really interesting.
I hope it's close. I don't want it to be another 20-point lead. Or, it would be nice to get it down to the last game of the season, neck and neck. I think that they're the sort of. I mean, like when City won it against QPR with the whole United thing.
Yeah,
like that is, even though we lost and it's one of the worst seasons
historic
I've ever experienced. It was also one of the best seasons I've ever experienced, just because like the finale was so good.
Edge of your seat stuff.
Yeah.
So where do we think Chelsea fit into all this? Obviously, they've been splashing the cash this year, using their Hazard money that they couldn't spend last year. They've signed some extremely exciting attacking players. There's still question marks around their defence for me. I know they've signed Thiago Silva. They've signed another defender who supposedly is going straight out on loan.
I think they've just signed a goalkeeper as well from Rennes.
Have they?
Yeah,
You've obviously been looking at your phone more this evening than I have.
Don't quote me on it, but there was a lot of chat about it for around 20 million.
It's interesting, because I'd heard on the talk yesterday that Lampard was preparing to give Kepa a second chance.
I thought you would, because 75 million they spent on him. I thought you can't just chuck him after one season.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember De Gea when he first, obviously De Gea's fallen off a bit of a cliff recently, but when he first started at United, he was awful, and then for 2 or 3 seasons he was probably your best player. So I think it would be a bit harsh to just throw Kepa out because he's had one bad season. He wouldn't be the only player to have a bad season and then all of a sudden become much better.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, don't quote me on it. I could be completely wrong. I might have just put my foot in my mouth. But from what I was reading earlier, it's pretty much
a done deal.
Just off a done deal, yeah.
Okay. In terms of what constitutes a successful season for Chelsea? Obviously, Lampard had a bit of a free ride last year. Yeah. They couldn't sign anybody. He brought through all this young, exciting English talent. So he had everybody was kind of behind. Even me as a West Ham fan, I actually was saying to our Chelsea friends in our football team that we play for, I said, I really enjoy watching Chelsea right now. They've got lots of exciting players, but I fear that that's coming to an end. Because
he seems to have lost faith in all his young sort of, like he was all out like Tammy Abraham, Tomori, Mount, and towards the end of the season, they started to play less and like Giroud came back in the team. He seemed to just slowly lose faith in these players that he had so much faith in at the start of the season, and now it's almost as if he's completely replaced every single one of them.
Yeah, and I think I don't think you can really splash the sort of money that they have and then not play him.
Yeah.
Timo Werner is probably going to be the first name on the team sheet.
I think he's going to be starting week in, week out.
Yeah.
And Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz is going to be another one. I think Ziyech will be. I personally think he's going to be a big player for them, but I think he might end up being a bit of a Mahrez. I think he's going to be in and out of the team a little bit.
You've got Pulisic.
Excuse me.
Pulisic up there as well.
Yeah. Obviously, they've brought in, as I said, Thiago Silva. I don't know. For me, he's going to be a bit of a John Terry in their team. John Terry was never blessed with pace, but his positioning and his football intelligence was always so good. And I feel like they've brought Thiago in for exactly that reason. They need somebody there to command that defence.
I think Thiago Silva is going to be more of a locker room player than he is a pitch player, to be honest. I think they've brought him in to sort of nurture the young players. Because if you want to learn off a centre, you want to learn off of Thiago Silva.
Or someone of that
Someone like,
nature,
like a John Terry. He's pretty much like a sort of more modern John Terry.
Yeah. So, and just going back to my original question, what do you think constitutes a good season for them? I mean, last year, I think, a little bit like that argument we have with Sheffield United, where you look at where they were and where they finished up, I think you probably would say the same with Chelsea. I think getting to the FA Cup final, going 1-0 up against Arsenal, did they miss out on Champions League or did they get it in the end? They fourth, didn't they? Yeah. So I think you could probably still argue that it's a successful season because they got in the Champions League. But they did finish the season with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season when they weren't allowed to sign players, and I looked at this squad, I thought they're not going to be anywhere near Champions League.
Yeah.
I thought they would be Europa League, but yeah, for them, obviously they were sort of fighting with Leicester for a while, and then Leicester just pretty much fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
I think they had a good season, and I think for next season, I don't see them catching City and Liverpool. I think Lampard isn't on the same. I don't know how to word it, but he's not on the same pedestal as Klopp
He's
and
not on the same level,
Guardiola.
is he? No.
Klopp and Guardiola can read a game and change it like that. Whereas Lampard, I still think he's a little bit naive. He's still young. He's still learning. He won't quite have that initiative to make a substitute after 20 minutes because the game's not going how he.
Yeah,
thinks
Lampard to me sounds he's a bit more reactive than proactive. Klopp and Guardiola can see it coming earlier, and will nip it in the bud, and or at least try to nip it in the bud by doing something. Whereas I think whatever is going to go wrong will go wrong before Lampard changes it, and that's going to come with experience. That will come with time.
I don't think you can. I don't. If Abramovich is expecting to spend all this money and then see Chelsea win the league, I think he's going to be pretty disappointed.
Yes, agreed.
I think if Chelsea finish. If I were a Chelsea fan and we finished third next season, I'd be happy.
Do you think that the money outlay they're going to want a trophy? Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think third place in an FA Cup, for example?
The concentration should turn. I think they need to be doing well in either the FA Cup or
Carabao Cup is a bit of a
Carabao Cup is kind of pointless to be honest. But the Champions League, I think they need to be aiming semi-finals.
Yeah.
If they can get semi-finals, get the FA Cup and finish third in the Premier League, I think they've had a great season.
I think 2 out of those 3 for me would constitute a great season.
Yeah.
Depending on, if they won the FA Cup and come third but got knocked out in the group stages, depending on how they went out, that might put a bit of a blemish on. But if they get to the knockout stages of the Champions League, maybe quarterfinals, I think if they come third, I don't think that's any different really these days to coming fourth.
In the Champions League.
Yeah, as long as they secure Champions League football again, I think that's the bare minimum. If they get an FA Cup, obviously FA Cup is a bit of a lottery sometimes, but they've got it definitely in them to do it. And obviously they've signed a lot of players with proven Champions League quality and experience, and a lot of the time those players may not be able to shine quite so much in the Premier League because of the nature of the league. But perhaps on a Champions League stage, maybe they can really shine.
I think Abramovich will be expecting a trophy. Even if he might be happy with Carabao Cup, and maybe they should go for that because other teams probably won't be as interested in that. So if I were Lampard, I probably would go for something like a Carabao Cup because I think that would just silence the haters a bit. Because
it's an argument that's often thrown at Tottenham, isn't it? Especially under Pochettino, that everyone was ranting and raving about how great they were, but they didn't win a single trophy. There was no silverware to show for it, and often, rightly or wrongly, and whichever side of the argument you come down on, if you don't win a trophy, it is viewed by so many people as a failure. I think third place for Chelsea is the target. If they get fourth, great. As long as they're in the Champions League, that's fine. And I'm dead keen to see how some of those players perform in my fantasy league team as well.
I'm really looking forward to watching Chelsea play with all these players. Be interesting to see if they sink or float.
Yeah, it will be. Right, so we're coming to the end of our first show. I just want to talk about the predictions that we mentioned at the start of the show. I think that what the plan is going to be is that off recording or off air, we are going to make up some categories. We've got a whole list here. We'll probably just refine them if we need to, but for the moment, we're going to go with predicting the winner of the league. I think we've spoken about some of these in the podcast already.
We've both gone for different teams, which is quite good.
Yeah, and the feeling is that obviously we don't have to do it now, so we could change our minds later.
Yeah. Might change to Sheffield United.
So we're going to go winners. We're going to go who's going to make up the top 4. We're going to go for who's going to get relegated, who the top scorer and top assists are going to be, the Golden Glove and most red cards. And then for the slightly oddball ones, we're going to go which of the 3 promoted teams does the best. I don't know. Do you want to do that as based on league position or based against perhaps their expectations? Because obviously everyone is expecting Leeds to get top 10. If they get that, but Fulham maybe get 13th, does that mean that's a better season for Fulham than it is Leeds?
It's a tough one because how are you going to know who's got the higher expectations?
Yeah. I mean, some of these we're going to have to effectively come to a truce.
That's going to be tough because we're both going to say Leeds, I think, aren't we? I don't think either of us is going to say West Brom to finish above Leeds.
No. But that's what I mean. Are we going to base it purely on league position?
We can play around with that one.
Yeah, all right.
Play around
we're also going to guess who the first manager to be sacked will be. We're going to go for the signing of the summer. We did think about signing of the season, but that's not going to work because the January transfer window, assuming it is in January this year, we can't obviously predict the future, and we don't want to reopen our envelopes halfway through the season. We're also going to talk about flop of the season. Now, I think we're going to go team flop.
Yeah.
Because I think signing of the summer and flop of the signing of the summer, or however you want to word it, I think flop of the season works better for team.
Yeah, and it's probably a bit harsh to single out a player who we think is going to flop.
Yeah. And then last one, we're going to have sort of the dark horse or the surprise package of the season. So some of these we're going to have to, as I say, find a common ground and find a bit of a truce on as to what we think is the best of the three answers. So then the idea is we're going to put that in an envelope. We're going to keep that nice and sealed until the end of the season. We'll run through it and see which of the three of us wins. And hopefully we'll still be here at the end of the season as well. So a couple of other bits of housekeeping. Obviously, we have run over the hour mark today. We are going to try and keep these podcasts to roughly an hour. That's going to take a little bit of learning, a little bit of experience as we try and get through the stuff we want to talk about. We'll have our social media stuff and logos and jingles. That's going to all be coming in the next few days or so. So do keep an eye out for that when we talk about it in the next podcast. I think that's about it, mate. So, not bad.
Not bad.
I think that went all right.
I'm happy with that.
We'll see. We'll see what everyone thinks. So, once we get the socials and the email and all that kind of set up, it'd be great to hear from anybody that is listening. I'm not expecting herds of viewers early doors, but if anyone is listening and anyone's got any feedback or thoughts on what was good, what didn't work, don't abuse us too much. It'd be great to hear from people. So, thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you all next week.
See you next week.